From classic kings to the naked knights to what we know and love today, LEGO has been releasing castle sets since 1978 and can be broken down into different eras. The first is Classic Castle from 1978 to 1999, Knights Kingdoms 1 and 2 from 2000 to 2006, Fantasy Era from 07 to 09, the fan favorite Kingdoms from 2010 to 2012, 2013 Castle had a 2-year run, and then Modern Castle began with the reboot in 2021. This will be part 1 of a 3-part series where today, we will be ranking the 61 classic castle sets. I was debating making a huge video ranking every single one, but let's be honest, all of these sets are going in the F tier compared to a set like this. Starting off, we have a small set with the Black Knight's boat. Despite coming out in the latter half of the castle theme, the build and minifigures are pretty underwhelming, not off to a great start. It looks like next we have the Knights Challenge. For 1998, horse barding is just awesome, so ahead of its time. I actually really like the Wolfpack figure and the glow-in-the-dark ghost. Unfortunately, the ghostly hideout is gonna drop in the F tier because this is pretty horrendous. My first of many hot takes is that I absolutely love the Forestmen. They had these 2 little wagon builds which are pretty rough, but the figures are solid, so I'll throw them in the C tier. The next one is essentially the same as the set we just looked at, but the Black Knight is far inferior to the Wolfpack Soldier. The Dragon Masters are notorious for their blocky designs but awesome shields, and Megisto's Tower is no exception. This might even be generous, but I think this one should be our first set in the B tier. Ooh, okay. Next we have the Smuggler's Hayride from I believe 1990. Another Forestmen wagon, but this one looks so much better than the previous 2. The Knights Tournament was the second ever LEGO castle set, but I actually really like the vibe. Probably isn't fair to put it up this high, but I'll drop it in front of Megisto's Tower because I really like that huge molded tree. Up next is the Siege Cart, and obviously, this isn't wowing anyone, but it also does everything it's trying to do. If you couldn't tell by now, I didn't include any of the tiny sets or polybags because they're just super boring and I'm not wasting any time. A set needed to be big enough for 2 minifigures to make this list. The King's Oarsman is pretty much the Black Knight's boat, just slightly better. Moving on, we have the Horse Cart, and this is pretty abysmal. There's a reason that people aren't overly fond of the Lion Knights, and this is why. At least it has a horse, so I'll do it with the justice and throw it at the top of F tier. The Bandit Ambush is another solid Forestmen set. Not the prettiest thing ever, but I really like the concept, so it'll go at the top of B tier. Yes, okay, we have our first set from my favorite faction. The Batlord's Catapult is pretty lackluster as one of the final LEGO castle sets, at least in terms of the build. The figures and especially the shields are the standout for sure. As much as I'd love to rank it higher, I'll continue the line of horse and wagon sets. Okay, we have our first Black Falcon set. The only really redeeming grace that it has is the minifigures. They have some really solid prints for 1984, but that's about all. Wow, great, we have another Ghost set. I really like those big old brown doors, but yet another disappointing build. It's not gonna get much better. As a matter of fact, it couldn't get any worse. Come on LEGO, what were we thinking here? When I think of Royal Knights, the first thing that comes to mind is the generic, outdated faction. Dare I say there's a reason why their fanbase has as many members as Galador. Not only did we get one of those awesome classic dragons, but we also saw Will of the Witch. Don't get me wrong, not a good looking set by any means, but good enough for B tier. Let's go in between the Knights Tournament and the Bandit Ambush. Wolfpack Renegades is another horse and wagon set, but slightly more decked out than some of the previous ones. Next up is the Twin Arm Launcher from the Lion Knight faction, and once again, the horse barding is just so ahead of its time. This is a really solid set, so let's go right behind the Witch's Worship in the B tier. There's just no way around it. The Blacksmith Shop is rough. Yes, it has a horse, but I still don't think that's enough to redeem it. A very similar set is the Armor Shop. It's a little bit better in my opinion, and since the Blacksmith Shop is the top of S tier, I think that C tier is reasonable. If I'm remembering correctly, The Dungeon Hunters is our first Crusaders set. Crusaders is a very forgotten faction, but this is definitely solid. I'm liking top of B tier. I just love how unique the Dragon Defender is. I do have a bias because I love the Dragon Knights, but I feel like this one is objectively cool. It looks like next is the King's Carriage. It's pretty much just a copy of the Crusader set that we looked at, but it's a bit more decked out. You know what? Let's go A tier. The Hemlock Stronghold was honestly a really unique set. Again, I love the Forestmen, so let's go behind the Knights challenge in A tier. You can tell that the Trader Transport was released towards the end of Classic Castle because it's a really sweet little build. It's pretty small, so I'm not sure I can put it in A tier, but definitely top of B tier. You might be familiar with the Magisto's Magical Workshop GWP from recent years, but did you know that it was based on the old one? The original from 1993 really holds up in my opinion. Up next, we have the Viking Voyager, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense because it's a Lion Knight set, but it's still awesome. Getting 5 minifigs in a tiny set like this is incredible. In my mind, it's basically the King's Oarsman on steroids. Just a moment ago, we talked about the Magisto's Magical Workshop GWP, and now we have another classic set with a GWP remake. This is about as good of a set as you can get at this scale. I feel like S tier would be reserved for only the best of the best, but I can say that this is the best set we've looked at so far. Alright now, the horse and carriage sets are getting slightly old, but I would kill for 4 horses in a set nowadays. I'm gonna drop this towards the top of B tier. The next set on this list is the Dragon Wagon, and I'll be the first to say how tough of a name that is. It's not a great set, but the dragon and printed flags are solid inclusions. The Sea Serpent is hands down one of the most iconic LEGO castle sets of all time, and I don't think it's crazy to say that it was ahead of its time. The printed sail is also gorgeous. In my opinion, this is the second best set so far. Knight Stronghold is the first of what looks to be a couple generic structure sets. Following the Knight Stronghold is the Forest Stronghold, and wow, is this set good. Honestly, super impressive for coming out in '97. I think this might be slightly better than the Forest Hideout. You know what, actually? I think it's fair to put this one in S tier. Now we're going to take a step down from the glory of the Forest Hideout to the mediocrity of the Guarded Inn. Kind of just the average Lion Knight set. If the Forestmen's Crossing didn't have so many exposed studs, it would be higher. But for now, I'm liking the top of B tier. These next two are just super generic castles. You can tell that LEGO is just playing it safe, but I mean they did everything they need to, I guess. They're both a decent size, so I'll put them in the A tier. I'll be honest, the Wolfpack Tower is just not that good looking. As much as I love Wolfpack sets, this one severely falls behind. Dark Dragon's Den uses just a few too many burps for my liking, which is a shame because this set is almost so good. I do still think it's of the better sets that we've looked at so far. I'm not quite sure why LEGO decides to ruin all of their Forestmen sets by putting a base plate on the bottom. You can tell that they've learned with modern sets because base plates just aren't really a thing anymore. I really like the Forestmen's River Fortress build outside of the base plate, so it's just going to go at the very top of B tier. I don't have a whole lot to say about the Royal Drawbridge. It has good minifigs and a decent build, just nothing crazy. The Dark Forest Fortress is from a faction that you might have never even heard before. The Dark Forestmen were a group of Forestmen that strayed too far, and this is their flagship set. It's bulky, but honestly I like it a lot. If you compare the King's Castle from the Lion Knights to the Yellow Castle, is it not just an inverted gray version of it? With 667 pieces, it's one of the biggest classic castle sets. Just for that, I think it's fair to put this one in A tier. Our next flagship castle actually belongs to the Crusaders. Now this is also pretty generic, pretty safe, but I really like the raised base plate. If you don't know, these go for like $50 on their own these days. It also includes a generous amount of minifigs. Yes, okay. Next is another awesome set with a raised base plate. The fire-breathing fortress is such a nice contrast from the gray castles that LEGO always seems to make. It also includes what is probably my favorite classic LEGO castle minifigure with the Dragon Master. His cape is just insane, and especially for 1993. This is definitely an S tier set, but is it better than the Forest Stronghold? I think it is. Let's go top of the S tier. It looks like we have some big Black Knight sets coming. As far as Black Monarch's castle goes, I don't have a whole lot to say. It's pretty basic. The real treat is with the Black Knight's castle. Not quite sure why the Knight is getting a better castle than the King, but he must have done a crazy deed in battle. The Black Knights have always been one of my least favorite factions due to how boring their figures are, but at least you get 12 here. I also really like the tavern build on the right that clearly inspired the greatest LEGO set of all time. I would be surprised if this set doesn't finish at the top of S tier. Let's hop off our high horse and come down to the level of the Witch's Magic Manor. All I'll say is that if you think this set is bad, you might want to stay tuned to the channel. With how underwhelming the majority of the Royal Knights sets are, I'm surprised how good the Royal Knights castle is. I don't think it's deserving of S tier, but I feel really good putting it near the top of A. Our second to last set is the Night Lord's castle, and this is Fright Knights at its finest. For a set in the 1900s, it does not get better than this. Well, except for the Black Knight's castle. Finally, no castle list would be complete without the Yellow Castle. Shameless plug, I'm releasing my own modern remake of this set very soon. It was the first classic castle set ever, and also what I think is the most iconic. I wanted to put it at the top of S, but objectively I don't think I can. Part 2 of this series will be looking through every Knights Kingdom 1 and 2 sets, and that one is already in the works. Until then, thank you guys so much for watching, and God bless.